Hello and welcome to Sunday Runday, the podcast. On this week's episode, I'm really fortunate to be joined by the founder of Precision Fuel and Hydration. Some of you may know about Precision Fuel and Hydration, or like myself, actually use it on a regular basis. So, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time out to join the show, Andy.
No problem at all, Clint.
Now, I'm really excited to have you on the show. And I guess I'd love to go back to a little bit of the start of your journey, of back when your running journey and also being an elite triathlete as well, and how that kind of shaped you into being the founder of Precision Fuel and Hydration.
Yeah, I've been an endurance athlete from a relatively young age, really. I started getting into endurance sports in my sort of early teens. My mum and dad were always very encouraging to get me into sport. I actually, like most kids in the UK, I played a lot of football when I was young.
Yeah.
But alongside that, I did some swimming, and I was always taken along to take part in school cross country running. Um, I wasn't particularly brilliant at it. I wasn't bad. I used to make the kind of county team and that kind of thing, but I was making up the numbers rather than being at the sharp end. Um, and yeah, I found when I was in my mid-teens, I stopped playing football, and I couldn't, looking back, exactly tell you why, but I obviously got something out of doing the running, doing the endurance sports.
Yeah.
But there was a moment that I remember for me, which was when my dad took me along to a swim run event for kids that was run alongside a triathlon, and I did the swim run. Saw all the triathlon bikes there with kind of tri-spoke carbon wheels and this kind of stuff, and got quite interested in that, and I actually, badgered my dad to buy me a bike so I could have a go at that. And I was really fortunate. There was a local triathlon club in Leicester where I grew up. It only had I reckon it probably had less than 30 members at the time. And there were no junior members, but I went along, and the guys there were really welcoming. I got going with that. And that kind of set me off on this weird little mid 1990s journey to living in the middle of England and wanting to do the Hawaii Ironman. So that's how it all got started.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, it's such a great story as well. Just to say, growing up in England, like myself, we played a lot of football, but to be able to have that, other discipline as well. And that moment as well, remembering just, yeah, you went to a swim run event and was just like, you know what, this is what I really want to get into. And then obviously talking about the triathlon in Hawaii, obviously an absolute dream. How was that for you?
So I was very focused for years on the idea of one day doing the Hawaii Ironman, because that was, and still is in many people's eyes, kind of the pinnacle of the sport, really.
Yeah.
I got really into reading the magazines, watching the VHS video cassettes of the ABC or NBC coverage from America, like seeing Dave Scott and Mark Allen and those people running in Kona. So there was always part of me that wanted to do that. But when I did triathlon in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a big swing in focus towards it being an Olympic sport, because obviously it was first Olympic sport in Sydney in 2000. Now, I went to the University of Bath in the late 90s, where the British triathlon squad were training, and I became part of that squad as a junior and then as a senior. Again, a bit like my running days, I was always there or thereabouts, making up the numbers in the squad. Not really. I wanted to be one of the top athletes, but the reality for me was, I think I was like pretty good, but not exactly world class. So, but I gained a huge amount of experience. I did a lot of short course racing, and when I didn't make the team or when it was obvious I wasn't going to make the teams for major championships for short course, I started to do some Xterra off road triathlon, and I also started to do some Ironman, and eventually that that led to me getting a spot to do Kona in 2004. Um, and that was one of the experiences I had, actually, that were quite challenging in the sport. Racing in the heat and humidity, I always found really, really hard.
Yeah.
I sweat a lot. I have a really high sweat rate, and whenever races get hot, they tended to be suboptimal for me. And with Kona and some other long races, I ended up in the medical tent with hyponatremia from getting my electrolyte balance all out of whack, and that was really the sort of catalyst for eventually learning about a lot more about hydration. And when I stop competing, getting into setting up Precision Hydration as a business.
No, thank you for sharing that. And as you say, from your experiences, then these led you on to now obviously setting up Precision Fuel and Hydration and learning about what your needs were. And as you say, from your sweating as well and what the sweat test can do. And that'd lead me on to obviously talking a little bit about your sweat testing because it is, especially here in Australia, we hear a lot about it, and a lot of people do actually go along to some events because they get the opportunity at the expos to be able to do the sweat testing, the very non-invasive sweat testing that you guys have, and the technology behind that, which is absolutely phenomenal. I'd like to talk a little bit about how it led down to obviously creating this sweat testing, but also what we can gain from some of the results and how that could help us on sort of our, fueling, strategy when it comes to a race day.
Yeah, the reason I got into or got interested in sweat testing was that once I'd had these kind of epic failures basically in long hot events and realized it was down to something to do with my hydration, I started doing a lot of reading online, and a lot of the information I came across in those days was in the sort of early ultra running forums online, because if you've heard of the Western States 100, which is a really famous and very hot ultra distance race in the Western US, the the forums on that event talked a lot about how much electrolytes people needed to take when they were racing, and it kind of resonated with me based on what people were saying, that there was some of these people racing that event were having to take a lot of sodium.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of debate actually in those forums about whether that was necessary or not and how much to take. And I, I shared some of this information, some of my thoughts with a friend of mine who was a doctor, a heart surgeon, Dr. Raj Jutli. And Raj was really, really interested in this and looked at it from his kind of medical perspective and said to me, look, I think what's going on here for you individually is you sweat a lot. I think you lose a lot of electrolytes in your sweat, and you're probably not replacing enough of them. You may be drinking too much fluid and not taking in enough electrolyte. And he said, there is a test we can do in the hospital that looks at how much electrolyte, how much sodium specifically you lose in your sweat. And he said, I bet if we test you, it will be off the charts high. So I said, fine, can you sort that out? He sort of sneaked me in the back door of the hospital, got this test done. The test is originally designed for diagnosis of cystic fibrosis. So it's typically done on babies and small children, but
Yeah.
they did the test on me. And sure enough, Dr. Jutley was bang on. My sweat sodium level is really high. It's about double the population average, and coupled
Wow.
with a high sweat rate and then doing things in the heat, it meant that I was exposed to a high level of electrolyte losses when I'm competing.
Yeah.
And this led to a pretty quick change. We drew up a simple spreadsheet. We looked at how much I was drinking, how much I was likely to be losing based on my sweat rate. And then I started taking electrolyte capsules when I was racing, and a lot of them. And it was like, night and day different. It made all
Yeah.
the difference. So that was the sort of insight that happened. And then this was in the early 2000s. So I was getting into my late 20s, having to decide, do I want to, I need a proper job really. I can't just keep pretending that I'm an athlete for the rest of my life. Um, so I was already starting to coach athletes, work with athletes. I was using my sports science background, and I was running a sports science lab, and we actually bought one of these cystic fibrosis sweat testing units to to test athletes' sweat and to help advise them on their hydration. And that was how the sweat testing idea started to come to fruition. And then it was in partnership with the manufacturers of the sweat testing kit, who saw the opportunity to use that outside of the medical device field and more into the sports testing field, that we came up with the idea of precision hydration. So it's all been sort of one thing led to another, because we did the sweat testing. We got involved with the manufacturer of the kit. They wanted to push it into sport. We thought it was a good idea to, it was a helpful idea for athletes to have access to this kit and to this knowledge. And then once we started testing a lot of athletes, they started asking, okay, should we be drinking? And we looked at the products that were on the market, and the big gap in the market, in my opinion then, which to an extent exists now around, around what we do at Precision, is there's not really multi-strength electrolytes. There are lots of different electrolyte drinks available, but the key thing about an electrolyte drink really is like how much sodium is it replacing for you? And most drinks were quite generic. There weren't at the time, especially many that were really very strong. So we came out with our 4 different strengths of electrolyte drink, and that's how the company got started.
That's incredible, and I love, as you said, like everything led to another, like bit by bit of your experience of where you were at in your race days and what you wanted to have that little extra to see how you can improve, and then to come to see your friend Dr. Raj and get that sweat testing and I love that it was a massive game changer for you. Like it was just that moment that you were like, yeah, that was massive. Like taking that electrolyte, taking on that sodium really did help me and move me forward, and then to be able to bring that into for you to with other athletes and help other athletes really do improve by knowing what their sweat testing is showing with the sodium loss, and then be able to progress into knowing what the intake is. And as you say, there's a gap in the market at that time, which is probably still, as you say, a gap in the market now. What Precision do really well is you do have those levels of electrolytes, and knowing which ones you can take, which can help your race day, is absolutely amazing. And I say I'm a big fan of them. I definitely use Precision Fuel myself. I think the gels having the 30 grams of carbs during a marathon run for myself is really good, knowing when to take it and giving me that extra. So yeah, moving into a little bit of the products, as you mentioned, they're having, with the hydration and different level of electrolytes. For yourself personally, what has been, driven so much about the different products as well, and the changes that they can bring? Obviously, each individually ones I know are very different, but the changes that they bring to sort of that race day fueling or in general training fueling.
Yeah, the way that our product suite has evolved at Precision has been always around what we felt athletes need or what athletes are telling us that they need. It's been very organic and gradual in the way things have developed. As we've already said, started with multi-strength electrolytes because that didn't exist, and we thought that that was something that could be really helpful. And for the first 10 or so years that we were in business, that was all we did was multi-strength electrolytes. We noticed though that quite obviously, really, with most conversations that you had with athletes about getting their hydration right, there was a question then that followed on, which is like, what do I do for my fueling? And we found ourselves recommending lots of different types of gels, chews, bars, that kind of stuff. But again, like with the electrolytes, we felt that there was a bit of a gap in the market, and we felt there was room for a kind of better performing, better tasting energy gel. I've used a lot of gels previously, and some of them are okay, but I didn't feel like there was one that I wanted. The taste profile was always tricky, and we felt we could do better with that. We also felt that there was a problem in the industry, again, one which I think to a certain extent still exists, in that there wasn't a lot of clarity around what you're actually taking with a gel. Like fundamentally, an energy gel is a dose of simple carbohydrates, ideally glucose and fructose, and a set amount. And we came out with our PF30 gel actually during COVID, when we were able to like spend some time at home in the kitchen making a prototype. And we came out with a PF30 because we wanted to make it clear and simple what you were getting when you took a gel. Because our product range is based on the simple philosophy that when you're doing endurance sports, you need 3 things. You need carbohydrates, you need fluids, and you need electrolytes. And the magic is not in any particular formulation of one of those things. It's in the mixture of getting the amounts right. So how much carb, how much fluid, how much sodium. So our product range has evolved to be a toolkit for athletes to deliver those things. And as you know, most carbohydrate recommendations for athletes sit in the 30, 60, 90, these days even 120 grams of carbs. So it always amused me that energy gels would have things like 22.3 grams of carbohydrate in, or 19.1 grams, or 26 grams. It's like it was makes the mental maths for an athlete really, really difficult. So we set
Yeah.
out to make things super simple, and just to try to build a toolkit, as I say, that athletes could put together their carb, fluid, and sodium needs really easily. we're big on neutral flavors. You'll know if you've used our products, they've either got no flavor or very, very slight flavor, because we all know that when you're doing something for multiple hours, the last thing you need is a really strong, sweet or sickly flavor. You get sick of it very easily. Yeah, and other than that, it really is just trying to help athletes do the simple things right with good guidance and good, clear product packaging and branding to make fueling and hydration as easy as possible.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that as well. From like you say, from me taking some of the products as well, not only just the gels, but the electrolytes as well. It is just that it doesn't have that real sweet taste or that real flavor to it. It is one that I, for myself, the same as you, tried many different gels over the years, and I come across Precision. And when I did, it was again like for me, it was a game changer. It was something that I was really happy to take. Really good, easy on my stomach as well, and happy that I take multiple when I'm doing a marathon for that long journey, that I can actually handle that. Where some other ones, previously you'd feel maybe you've had 2, 3 gels and you tap out and be like, that's enough. Like, whereas I do feel with the precision gels that yeah, you can have those extra ones that you may need to get you over the line and be able to hit some of your goals. So yeah, I think hats off to you guys at Precision as well. What you've created is a really good product. And I love what you said there as well of how to give athletes the tools in their toolbox, in a sense, the toolkit to be able to improve and be able to get through it. I think that's a really key thing that you're so focused, based on athletes as well and helping them. I really do think that's amazing. It's something that really drew me into precision as well. Not only just how good the products are, but the fact you are very athlete based.
Yeah, a lot of the team here at Precision are athletes. As we've grown over the years, we've obviously brought more people into the squad who aren't purely from an athletic background. But I would say that the balance in the team still massively skews towards people who are keen endurance athletes in particular. And that is especially the case actually in our sports science team, which is pretty big now, and also our athlete support team, who are the two teams that are most frontline with talking to customers. Most of those guys and girls are like me. They're doing marathons, triathlons, ultra marathons, trail running, cycling, whatever, on a weekend. So it's it's sort of easy for them to relate to what our customers are doing. And I think there are more upstart nutrition companies in the endurance sports world now, but a few years ago it was certainly the case. I think that most of the big players in the sports nutrition space were actually just big food companies pumping
Yeah.
out products targeted at athletes and weren't necessarily athletes themselves. They might have been started by athletes, but eventually they were absorbed by and purchased by big food companies. And it sort of takes away from that direct connection. And I think one of the things we really, really work hard on at Precision is to make sure that we've got good touch points with athletes. If people email us, they get a quick response from a competent human who cares about getting back to them to answer their question. We've built tools like our free fuel and hydration planner, and we've got our online free video calls where you can book a call with our athlete support team or sports science team to talk about your nutrition problems. And so we really do try and have a kind of athlete first mentality. And I hope that that's what comes across when people interact with the brand.
Yeah, I really do think so. And touching on what you mentioned there as well is something that I wanted to talk about is that you do have that on if you go on Precision Fuel and Hydration website, that you do have those touch points that people can ask for sort of race plan, race day plan, or obviously a hydration plan leading up to a marathon. And that, as you say, is a free service that you guys do get back to everyone. I've used it myself, gone on there and put my details in and get my sort of my fueling plan from race day, but from training. That's something that I think, yeah, a lot of other companies that I haven't seen do, and I see that you guys do. And as you say, to have someone that is in that space that is running marathons, is ultra marathons, triathlons, all of that, and has that knowledge about it. So yeah, just touching on that, like how good is that to have it as, for us athletes and everyday athletes that we want to learn more about fuel and hydration to actually have that as a service.
Yeah, I think that when I was racing, seriously 20 years ago, I'd have ripped someone's arm off for access to the kind of knowledge and information that we're now able to
Yeah.
put out, either through the knowledge base on our website or through interacting with the team, video calls, that sort of thing. I think that, again, I've talked a lot about these kind of gaps in the market, but I think that there's a lot of products out there, but are there really many sort of groups of people that are dedicated to helping you to use those products and get the best out of them? I think not so much, unless you're prepared to pay for a private dietitian or sports nutritionist to work with you, then you're really left to read stuff online and you're left to your own devices. So for us, it's always been a key part of the precision philosophy. I think it comes from the fact that we started out consulting with athletes, doing the sweat testing, trying to advise people on how to perfect what they were doing. We like to see the process through, and we like to hear from people when they've, taken our advice, used our products, and had a great race. That is fundamentally why we exist. So I think it's in the company's DNA to want to do that, and that's why we do it the way we do it.
No, and I absolutely love it. And yeah, I think it's great to have that service. As you say, it's something that if the only other way of getting that is to pay a lot of money to have a sports nutritionist or something like that. You guys are offering that with great experience and great expertise. You say from yourself, you've had many years of, learning about your strategies when it comes to race days, but having that athletes part of the team is just amazing. And I absolutely love that. So I guess, leading on just before we wrap up the podcast, what's next for Precision? You've as you say, you start up with just the electrolytes and just the different stages, and now you've moved into, gels and, energy chews and stuff like that. What's kind of next on the horizon?
At the moment, we're doing a lot of talking about developing our online tools. So we have a really good fuel and hydration planner for different events at the moment. But given what's now becoming possible with AI, we've already started experimenting with improving those tools to make them more specific, more individualized. And I would like to think that in the not too distant future, we'll be rolling out some upgrades to those tools, because ultimately that's where the best experience from your sports nutrition your best experience with sports nutrition comes from having a really, really clear and executable plan that's based on lots and lots of variables to do with your physiology, your preferences, the race you're doing, the environment you're in. And AI-based tools are really, really adept at pulling a lot of this complicated information together and outputting a plan for you to use. So I think that we've got a lot of improvement that we can make in that area, and that's a big area of focus within the team at the moment. We've always got our ear to the ground in terms of product development, and we've started some sort of exciting new projects at the moment, which are too early stage to really talk about specifically. But we've currently got products that work for athletes before exercise, during exercise. We haven't focused so much on post-exercise yet. That's a subject of discussion. But we're also mindful that what we want to do is we want to make sure that wherever we're putting our efforts, it results in a better output for the athletes. I think a lot of businesses fall into the trap of being a little bit self-serving after a while and thinking about what they can do to improve their situation. Our philosophy has always been to put the athletes first, to think about where we can improve what we do to make the athlete experience better. And we're constantly investing in things like our fulfillment infrastructure and our customer service team to make sure that if you order your gels on a Wednesday or Thursday, we try and get them to you before the weekend when you probably need them for the race. Sounds really simple, but it's no good having an amazing brand and some great products on the front end, but having no logistics to back them up. And so there's a lot of kind of, I wouldn't say boring, it's not boring, but a lot of simple, basic stuff that we're constantly investing in evolving to make sure that if you interact with Precision Fuel and Hydration, whether that's on a video call, whether it's buying a product, whether it's having a sweat test with one of our sweat test partners, whether it's, going to one of our retail network and getting product, you have a great experience. And that is ultimately what we're constantly focused on. So it's not revolution for us, it's just evolution and trying to do all the right things to enhance our ability to serve the athletes who are our customers.
No, and I actually love that. It's such an amazing philosophy. And as you say, it's, you know, it's just getting that logistical stuff sorted. Like it's for some people, as you say, it's not necessarily boring. It's just kind of get that structure behind you guys, and everything just flows from there. Having the front line, everyone working together. I think that's just amazing. And yeah, excited obviously for the next things in precision. I say I myself is big fan, and definitely something that I take and really does help me with my race day. But just before we wrap up the podcast, the last thing for you, Andy, is more personally, obviously race days, how are they going? How is obviously the next plans for more race days for yourself?
Yeah, I just a couple of weeks ago I did the LA marathon. Actually, I've got a lot more into running these days rather than trying to keep up triathlon training. It's a bit time consuming when you've got young family and business to run and that sort of thing. So I did LA marathon, and I was a little bit off my goal time, but close enough to be within shouting distance. I didn't have a great build up because I got injured in December. So I'm very focused this year on trying to do California International Marathon in December.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, I'm going to be putting together a bit of a program over the summer, maybe some half marathons, 10 milers, that sort of stuff, to try and sharpen up, and then have a bit of a crack at seeing how well I can do in my now sort of semi old man age group in California.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, congratulations on LA Marathon. Yeah, I did see on obviously online and it looked amazing over there. And yeah, obviously best of luck to CIM. I heard so much good stuff about CIM. So yeah, definitely, good training plan. Enjoy the summer of training and the weather in the UK. And yeah, I look forward to hearing how you do at CIM.
Thanks, Clint. Yeah, it's an awesome race. It's one you should get on the bucket list, I reckon.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure I'll be on the bucket list. And one year I'll definitely be there to do CIM. It looks amazing. But as I say, thank you so much for taking the time out to join the show. I really appreciate you sharing an insight into your journey from obviously how you built Precision Fuel. Also, talk a little bit about what you guys are doing there. Such an amazing stuff you were doing with great products as well to back it up. So, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule and joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Clint. Good luck with your business too.
No, thanks so much. Well, that's it from this week. And as always, until next time, happy running.